Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. My name is FPL Phillips and this is the Game Week 34 episode of Eddie versus the Algorithm, the series here on the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel, where we take a look at whether a computer can outscore a man at FPL over the course of one FPL season. And it is neck and neck at the moment. If you are watching for the first time, then you definitely want to catch the last few episodes. If you enjoy this one, then make sure to subscribe to the channel and follow along with the remainder of the series, as it is currently 14 game weeks won by the algorithm, 14 game weeks won by me, and that was going into game week 33, which at the time of recording currently isn't over, so we're not quite able to actually go ahead and recap on that game week yet because we don't know whether the score is going to come in as an algorithm win or a win for me. So I'll recap that ahead of game week 35 along with the game week 34 teams that you're going to see now, so we'll have a 2-score update ahead of next week's episode. But let's get into things, shall we, and kick things off by having a look at what you're all probably here for, and that is the computer-generated team and the ultimate free hit draft for game week 34. And heading into things then, we're seeing a rather unorthodox formation that we don't see deployed in many weeks of FPL throughout a season. I think it's the first time we've seen the algorithm or myself use this formation throughout the entire course of this series during the 22-23 campaign, and that is the 4-5-1 formation. And this algorithm team has a predicted whopping 118 points. Of course, being a double game week, we're going to see a higher than usual predicted points total, and with some of the top teams in the league at the moment having double game weeks, it's no surprise to see that points prediction break the 100 point mark. But we'll kick things off with the goalkeeper then, and between the sticks for the algorithm this week is going to be David De Gea, which is an interesting selection in my opinion. Manchester United have a nice set of fixtures. Not one team has a real standout double game week when it comes to defensive fixture difficulty, but Manchester United have looked a relatively decent defence over the course of the season. The problem being really is that they have a lot of defensive assets out through injury at the moment, Martinez and Varane notably at centre-back. It does make Manchester United a much weaker defence. You would think that at the moment Lindelof is going to start there alongside, most likely maybe Luke Shaw is probably going to have to be the other centre-back, but I definitely wouldn't put it past someone like a Maguire starting in the Manchester United backline for at least one of the games. So that does make them, you'd have to admit, a little bit more shaky and perhaps not quite the chances of a clean sheet that you'd hope for, especially when their opponents, Villa and Brighton, have been in decent goal-scoring form as of late. We'll look into the defence then and see a back four of two Liverpool assets in Trent and Robertson, alongside Estepinian of Brighton, and then finally John Stones of Manchester City, making a late dash into the algorithm 11. I was checking it throughout the week, as I usually tend to do, and Ruben Diaz was in the team for a while. I was considering myself John Stones, and the algorithm has decided to go with him. An interesting one, he obviously grabbed that goal against Arsenal. He's looked very good in the air for Manchester City. He's playing in that inverted role, which I suppose does give him more attacking threat from open play as well than the other Man City defensive assets. There is a little bit of a question mark over his minutes, despite Pep coming out and saying that Walker can't play that kind of role that Stones is deployed in. He has done that in the past, and he has come out and played Walker in that position in recent weeks. So no Manchester City defender really is completely nailed. I think that Diaz, who was in the algorithm team before, probably is safe at 4 minutes, but John Stones does have that attacking threat. We've seen what he's done in double game weeks in previous seasons, if you've been around for that or been lucky enough to own him during those times. And yeah, he has that whole potential, especially when he's looked really great in the air. And one of the teams they're playing, West Ham, looked pretty poor from set pieces against Liverpool, at least in their last outing. Estepinian there, 2 home games for Brighton. You'd have to say he's the best Brighton defensive asset. They're not keeping too many clean sheets lately, but unless you go with a triple up on the Brighton mids, I think he's kind of the only way to go with him and 2 Brighton midfielders. And then finally, Trent and Robbo, who've been picking up the attacking returns as of late, just no really clean sheets of significance that are bringing in those big points totals from the Liverpool fullbacks that we've seen in the last few seasons of FPL. Trent looks brilliant in that new midfield role. He's going to be picking up assists, you'd hope, in this double game week as well. Robertson, from those set pieces, has looked really strong. So yeah, no real debate from me as to whether these two should be in your draft. I think it's just a case of whether you want that third Liverpool attacking asset rather than going for Trent, Salah and Robbo. You go for Trent, Salah, and then someone like a Gakpo, or maybe going for Diogo Jota up front, which the algorithm clearly is not doing, given we've got one forward and we all know who that is. we'll get into the rest of the team then and see the midfield 5. We've got 5 players to run through here, and as predicted, 2 Brighton boys are coming in, with Solly March and Matoma being the ones of choice. With McAllister's positioning a little bit up in the air at the moment, I think that's probably a wise decision. March grabbing a return in Brighton's last game, despite the fact that we were a little bit disappointing against Nottingham Forest, you'd have to admit. They'll be looking to bounce back against Wolves, and I would expect them to. These two just seem the bog standards choice. They are real enablers on a free hit as well, due to the fact that they are so low in price. So having these 2 Brighton boys isn't really any sort of question. Then in the midfield, we've got Mohamed Salah, who again is another one who, despite blanking in 33, does look like a good option to have ahead of the double game week. It's not surprising to say that about Mohamed Salah. Grealish also looks good, and then Marcus Rashford, of course, we know how great he can be. Perhaps hasn't looked his sharpest. I'm saying this ahead of the United against Spurs game tonight, so you guys, if you're watching on the Friday, will have a little bit more information than me. But I think the only way you don't go with these 3 assets is if you switch one of them out to go for Kevin De Bruyne and have him in as an asset instead of having one of the other Man City options. So you'd have to take Grealish out, but it would probably require a downgrade, right, of maybe downgrading Salah or maybe downgrading a few other positions elsewhere in the team. And then finally up front, no surprises for guessing, it's Erling Haaland taking the captain's armband for Man City's fixtures against Fulham and West Ham, which you'd have to say are probably the strongest of any team in this double game week. That gives the algorithm total a 118 points prediction. And on the bench, we've got Luke Shaw, Dominic Solanke, and then Edouard. So a few single game week players in there. If you do own any of those guys, so Solanke I'm assuming will be more highly owned, then prove that he's got a pretty decent fixture, and there are some single game week players who do look like good options this week. And that is one thing that I would stress going into this week is don't panic too much, don't take minus 16 hits or whatever, trying to obsess over getting so many doublers in, because I've mentioned there's not many teams with a great set of 2 fixtures, because all these top teams are doubling, they're playing each other. You've got United against Brighton, you've got Salah and Liverpool going up against Spurs, who haven't been the best team, but there's not a real standout set of fixtures. You'd say Man City's are the best, but there's other teams that have single game weeks, like Newcastle against Southampton. If you've got Isaac, if you've got Trippier, be very willing and happy to start those assets is my advice for this game week. Kind of a tangent from the free hit discussion, but yeah, we'll get into having a look at how my team's changed, and to be honest, it's the exact same pretty much. I've got one change I've done is put Ederson in goal and then had Luke Shaw in the defence. Now this is a bit of a punt. I mentioned before that I think Maguire might start one of the Manchester United games, if not 2, and that would move Luke Shaw out to left back. I think he's good on the set pieces anyway, which is why I've still gone for him, and I'm willing to have him even if he is in that centre-back role. Him and John Stones was a very difficult toss-up, basically having the same result anyway. You've got Man City defender and a Man United defender. It's just who do I think has the more attacking threat, pretty much, whether I think it's Luke Shaw or whether I think it's John Stones. I'm just about edging towards going for Luke Shaw for the guaranteed minutes, you'd say, and then also the fact that he's got the set pieces, he's got the ability to grab assists from those, and also when he plays at centre-back, we saw in earlier game weeks of the season, he does actually look really good in the bonus points department as a ball-playing defender. So yeah, I think he looks great. That's the one change I've made to the team. Still got Erling Haaland on the armband, 116 predicted points for myself. We'll see what the score is going into this game week. We don't actually know whether it will be myself or the algorithm ahead by 1 on 15 to 14, but that means I could maybe make the deficit back to 15 all, or I could improve my score to 16 to 14 if I did beat the algorithm in game week 33, which is looking the more likely thing at the moment. We got Isaac up against Kane tonight as the real deciding factor. But yeah, I wish you all the best of luck with your teams for game week 34. I hope this video has been helpful if you are making your own free hit draft or just thinking about which transfers to make for your own personal teams. But I wish you all the best of luck for this game week, and may all your arrows be green. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. As mentioned at the start of the video, if you did enjoy and you're new around here, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Drop a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. And I'll catch you all in the next one. Goodbye.